Have you ever noticed how tired you are? Tired of trying, of insisting, of fighting against everything, against time, against expectations, against others, against yourself. Maybe you don't consciously realize it, but there's this quiet, persistent weariness that comes from the constant need to control life. You push yourself, always, to be more productive, more stable, more positive, to be stronger. You force yourself to make decisions, to keep relationships, to follow routines that no longer make sense. And the more you try, the more it all slips through your fingers, like water, like sand, like life itself. This is where a principle comes in, one that can truly shift the way you live. Wu Wei, an ancient Taoist concept, translated by Alan Watts as acting without forcing. But don't get it wrong. This has nothing to do with passivity or weakness. Wu Wei is one of the deepest acts of courage and wisdom. It's the ability to move with life, not against it. Imagine a dancer not battling the music, but feeling the rhythm, letting it guide them. Or a surfer not trying to dominate the sea, but learning to flow with the wave. Now, ask yourself, how many times a day do you try to force what isn't ready? How often do you blame yourself for not controlling what's meant to be wild and free? How many decisions have you made out of fear? Fear of losing something, fear of seeming weak, fear of not doing enough? The truth is, we've been conditioned to live against the current. Since childhood, we were taught that success comes from effort, insistence, persistence, even when everything inside us screamed, stop. And so, we grow into anxious, disconnected adults, cut off from our own lives because we were never taught the art of letting go, of observing, of trusting. But Wu Wei is not doing nothing. It's doing with awareness, with lightness, with respect for the natural timing of things. It's shifting. From the exhausted rower fighting the current, to the wise sailor who adjusts the sails and glides with the wind. Alan Watts once said, "When you stop forcing life, something magical happens. The right doors open, the right paths appear, the right answers come. Not because you wrestled them into place, but because you finally made space for them to rise. And maybe, just maybe, if you're hearing this now, it's because you're already tired. Because you've realized forcing doesn't work. And deep down, you already know you need another way. A way that's quieter, truer, more your own." Over the next few minutes, you'll begin to see why Wu Wei is more than just a lovely philosophy. It's a key, a practice, a shift in how you see the world. One that might return to your life what you've always looked for in control: peace. Not the shallow peace of self-help slogans, but a real peace. One that comes from alignment with what is, with who you are, with what life has been trying to tell you for a long time. So, take a breath. Let your shoulders drop. Be here now, because this is where the journey begins. To truly grasp Wu Wei, we have to go deeper than poetic words. We must feel the roots it came from: Taoism and Zen. And here's an invitation. Let go, just for a moment, of everything you've been taught about philosophy as some dry system of ideas. Tao and Zen aren't concepts for the mind. They're experiences, felt in the body, in the spirit, in the living pulse of life itself. The Tao, literally the way, isn't a theory or rulebook. It's a description of the invisible flow that moves everything: the growth of trees, the changing of seasons, birth and death, joy and sorrow. All part of a natural intelligence that goes beyond what we can understand. Lao Tzu, the Taoist master who first spoke of the Tao, said, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao." Why? Because the moment we try to capture life with words, it's already moved. The Tao is like wind. You can feel it. You can let it carry you, but you can never trap it. Zen was born from this same insight. When Buddhism met Taoism in ancient China, it became even more radical. Zen doesn't try to explain reality. It strips away everything that keeps you from experiencing it. In Zen, there are no beliefs to memorize, no doctrines to recite. Only this: the practice of being fully present, in every breath, every step, every gesture. Taoism and Zen both whisper the same hard truth: you're not in control, you never were. Please take a second to follow if this message resonates, and share in the comments how much of your life has been shaped by the need to control. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. and your attempt to control life is exactly what distances you from it. What these ancient teachings offer is not an escape, but a reconciliation with what is, a return to the state of trust you once had, perhaps as a child, when you still knew how to play without fear, how to fall without shame, how to try without the obsessive need to succeed. But this is where many get lost, because these ancient paths, emerging from cultures so different from ours, can feel distant, almost unreachable to the Western mind, shaped by reason, logic, and an obsession with results. And it's exactly here that a key figure enters, someone who spent his life building a bridge between two worlds, Alan Watts. In the next chapter of this journey, you'll discover who he was and how he became a translator of invisible wisdom. He showed us that Tao and Zen are not mystical luxuries for monks in faraway lands. They are urgent necessities for anyone who wants to live truly in this fragmented, restless world. Get ready to meet the man who opened the doors of the East to the West, and who might just open a new door inside you. Imagine a time when words like Tao, Zen, Wu Wei, and meditation were seen in the West as strange, impractical curiosities, fragments of distant cultures, irrelevant to modern life. It was in that exact moment that Alan Watts emerged, not as a scholar buried in books, not as a missionary preaching dogma, but as something much rarer, an alchemist of ideas, someone who could translate not just the words, but the soul of ancient traditions for a world that was already suffering, but hadn't yet realized why. Watts wasn't interested in sterile theory. He was a provocateur, a man who questioned the very foundations of Western thinking. He saw the real obstacle to understanding Tao, and Zen wasn't cultural. It was fear, fear of losing control, fear of surrendering the illusion that we are the masters of life. But Watts wasn't trying to convert anyone. He wanted to liberate us from the crushing weight of dogma, the tyranny of goals, the obsession with outcomes. He showed us, gently, playfully, that what we endlessly chase, peace, meaning, fulfillment, isn't out there in the conquest of the world, but in the silent courage to let the world simply be. He spoke not like a preacher, but like someone sitting beside you, laughing, wondering, inviting you to feel rather than analyze. Alan Watts didn't hand out answers. He dismantled the questions. He pulled off the masks. He invited your mind to trip over its own ideas so that in that brief moment of falling, something real could be felt. He understood that Tao and Zen cannot be explained logically. So he told stories. He used metaphors, like the river that flows effortlessly, the sailor who rides with the wind. He offered us the essence of wisdom that had been cultivated in silence for thousands of years. Watts once said that life is like music. The goal isn't to race to the end of the song. It's to dance with it, to feel each note, each beat, without rush, without fear. But that's exactly what we forget. We turn life into a race, when it was always meant to be a dance. And Wu Wei, the art of not forcing, is the music that's been playing all along. We just haven't learned to listen. Alan Watts didn't just challenge beliefs. He challenged an entire generation to rethink what it means to live well. He knew that as long as we're trying to win at life, we are, by definition, already losing it. His voice still echoes, because he didn't just speak of ancient teachings. He spoke of something deeper, our invisible wounds, our modern loneliness, our silent anxiety, our disconnection from now. But Watts also knew something else. Understanding isn't enough. You can learn all about Wu Wei and still be paddling upstream in your own life. That's what we'll explore next. Because in the metaphor of the river, central to Alan Watts' thinking, we find both the root of our suffering and the path to real freedom. So, take a breath, close your eyes, and imagine a river, a vast, powerful river, flowing with ancient force, carrying everything, stones, leaves, logs, fish, even the earth itself. Now, imagine someone inside that river, desperately trying to swim against the current. Every move is a struggle. Each effort is resisted. The body tires, the muscles ache, the mind panics, and the more they fight, the further they drift from any chance at peace. This image, this painful image, is exactly how Alan Watts described human suffering. The metaphor of the river is not just beautiful, it is brutally true. It reveals something we often miss. Our suffering rarely comes from events themselves. It comes from our resistance to what is. You lose a job, a relationship ends, a plan collapses. And instead of flowing with life, you cling to what is already gone, grasping desperately, like someone trying to hold water in their hands. Alan Watts explained that life, like a river, has its own rhythm, its own intelligence. You don't need to push it. You don't need to control it. You only need to trust its flow. But this doesn't mean blind acceptance. It means moving in harmony with forces larger than you. Just like a surfer reads the waves, not to conquer them, but to dance with them. When you fight reality, you create tension. And that tension doesn't just stay in your mind, it takes root in your body, in your spirit. You start living in a state of war, against life, against others, against yourself. The outcome is predictable. Chronic anxiety, restlessness, resentment, an ever-present feeling of helplessness. And the cruelest part, deep down, you know you're sinking. But the fear of letting go is even stronger than the fear of continuing to suffer. Yet, the river holds a silent promise that there is another way to live. A way where letting go doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finally finding yourself. When you stop resisting, you realize the river of life is not your enemy. It's your ally. It's carrying you to places your mind could never have imagined. But for that, you need courage. Courage to trust the unknown. Courage to give up the illusion of control. And that courage is not some mystical whim. It is an urgent necessity in a world that trains us from the very beginning to fight, to compete, to dominate. This is what we'll explore next. How Western culture has built an invisible prison. A prison of control and endless effort. A mindset that is slowly, silently breaking us from within. You were taught that success requires relentless effort, extreme sacrifice, absolute control. Since childhood, you heard the same mantras. Don't give up. Those who want it, make it happen. The world belongs to the strong. And so, you grew up believing that if you ever stopped fighting, if you didn't constantly plan, push, correct, something terrible would happen. But what you didn't realize is that this belief created a prison inside you, a prison of constant tension, of fear disguised as ambition, of anxiety painted with the colors of determination. Alan Watts saw this clearly. He saw that the West, in its worship of effort and control, has created a neurotic civilization, one where people run endlessly without ever knowing where they're going, where doing matters more than being, where moments of stillness feel like mistakes that need to be fixed. We live in societies that venerate excess productivity, excess information, excess goals. And in this endless project to optimize every second of our lives, we drift further and further from ourselves. We become strangers inside our own existence. Have you felt this? That strange emptiness, even when everything on the surface is going well. Working, studying, producing, and yet, something essential is missing. It is. What's missing is your connection to the natural flow of life, to the Tao, that which cannot be forced, only lived. But the mind, conditioned by control, rejects this truth. It fears uncertainty. It fears the unknown. It wants guarantees. And so, it builds routines, rigid goals, life strategies designed to eliminate all unpredictability. But in doing so, we eliminate more than uncertainty. We eliminate the magic, the mystery, the spontaneity that makes life worth living at all. Alan Watts warned, the more we try to control life, the more we separate ourselves from it. It's like trying to preserve the fragrance of a flower by locking it in an airtight vault. You save the form, but lose the essence. And the result? An artificial, mechanical, exhausted existence, where everything must be managed like a factory. Your emotions, your relationships, even your dreams. But there is a way out. A way to break the chains without giving up responsibility. A way to live lightly, without losing your depth. A way to return to what you were always meant to be, part of the flow, not separate from it. Freeing yourself from the unnecessary weight of illusory control, this is not escape, it is return. And that is what we will explore now. How to practically live the principle of Wu Wei in a world that moves fast, but beneath its speed, is starving for presence. Because doing less is not weakness, it is wisdom. And acting with less effort can paradoxically take you further than all your striving ever could. Speaking about Wu Wei in theory may sound poetic, even romantic. But how do you live it? How do you practice non-forcing in a world of deadlines, goals, endless notifications, and the pressure to always be on? This is the real challenge. And the answer is not a technique. It's a perspective shift, a transformation in how we define intelligent action, and how we define living well. Wu Wei is not about abandoning life, not about walking away from responsibilities, and certainly not about apathy. It's about acting, but from a different place. A place of stillness, of clarity, of attunement with reality. You don't act because you're panicked. You act because you're aligned. You don't force outcomes. You flow with conditions. To live Wu Wei is to begin with humility, the deep knowing that you are not the master of the universe, and that your power does not come from controlling everything, but from learning to listen, to feel, to dance with what life is already doing. That requires slowing down, breathing, observing before reacting. It means no longer moving from the fear of falling behind, and instead acting from what truly matters. In daily life, Wu Wei looks like this. It's choosing quality over quantity, depth over speed, meaning over appearance. It's knowing that sometimes the most powerful action is the pause. It's the courage to say no to activities, obligations, and performances that serve only to feed a restless ego craving validation. It's silencing the noise outside so you can hear the whisper within, the one that has always been there but was drowned out by the frenzy. Living in this way also means trusting life's natural cycles. There are moments to move, and moments to rest, moments of blooming, and moments of stillness. But we've been taught to fear the pause, to see it as failure, as stagnation, as something to correct. Alan Watts reminded us that even winter has its role, and that sometimes the greatest growth comes in the seasons when nothing seems to be happening. To live Wu Wei in modern life is a quiet rebellion, not to outperform others, but to stop losing yourself, to challenge the mindset of scarcity, the belief that you're never enough, never doing enough, never moving fast enough, and to reconnect with a deeper truth. That being is already enough. But this path requires vigilance, because the old programming, the voice of control, haste, and excess, will always try to pull you back. It will whisper, "You're falling behind. You need to do more. You have to prove yourself." And it is in those moments that the real opportunity appears, the choice to repeat the same resistance, or to trust the flow. And that choice marks the beginning of something radical. A quiet transformation that changes everything, not by forcing, but by allowing. There comes a point in life when you face this exact crossroad. Either you keep forcing, struggling, pushing against the current until your body and soul are depleted, or you let go. Not as a gesture of defeat, but as an opening. A recognition that life is not a battle to be won, but a mystery to be lived. Alan Watts understood this paradox well. Transformation does not occur when you demand it, but when you stop resisting what is already trying to emerge within you. When you stop forcing, you create space. Space for life to surprise you, space for synchronicities you could never have planned, space to reconnect with your intuition, with your body, with the silent rhythm of the Tao that has always been guiding you, even in the moments you thought you were lost. True freedom is not doing whatever you want, whenever you want. True freedom is deeper. It is alignment. It is when your actions no longer spring from anxiety or fear, but from a natural resonance with life itself. To act without tension, to create without pressure, to love without fear. This is freedom. It is the shift from being a frantic manager of your own existence to becoming a conscious participant in the silent, infinite dance of reality. But, like all things meaningful, this does not come without practice. It takes presence. It takes inner honesty. And above all, it takes courage. The courage to face those inner impulses that, in moments of fear, pull you back into the same old struggle against what is. Now you know. Now the choice is yours. Perhaps in this very moment, you can sense where you are still forcing. Somewhere in your life, where tension lingers, where you're pushing, where you're swimming upstream in a river that only asks to be followed. Often, simply noticing this is already a profound beginning. Noticing the resistance, naming it, letting it be seen. Because sometimes what needs to shift is not the world around you, but the grip you have on how you think it should be. And when that loosens, even slightly, life begins to move again. Not with chaos, but with clarity. And the journey back to presence continues from there, quietly but unmistakably. Not through force, through surrender. Not by adding more, but by releasing what was never yours to carry.